With America's insatiable appetite for crossovers not going anywhere anytime soon, it would seem that every manufacturer is kind of scrambling to introduce a new vehicle to satisfy these cravings. Nissan joins the brands introducing an all-new crossover for 2018. This is the 2018 Nissan Kicks. It is now the smallest SUV in Nissan's lineup. So, is it any good in this ever-growing segment? That's what we're here to find out. So when you look at crossovers in the lineup for Nissan, it's pretty complete here in America. The company has 6 different offerings, and although they're pretty quick to point out that this is not a replacement for the Juke, it technically is because this is now the smallest crossover that Nissan makes. Now you can see the design of the Kicks is designed to appeal to a much younger, more youthful buyer, a very active lifestyle kind of buyer. And you can see that with the design. I think it's actually a pretty handsome looking crossover. A lot of the traditional Nissan styling elements are here. The company's V-Motion grille, these boomerang inspired headlights, which my tester, because it's an SR trim, has LED low beam headlights, although everything else is kind of a halogen or an incandescent. I was surprised to find that this car doesn't have actual daytime running lights, whether it be a halogen or an LED. Instead, you just get the low beam headlights, you have fog lights and an incandescent turn signal here. I mean, overall, I really like the color combination. This deep blue with the white roof. You can also choose between Nissan's Color Studio Design Factory, where you can like paint the mirrors or the lower trim in any color you basically want. So it's a very bold vehicle that stands out. Now, this vehicle being the SR trim does come with these really attractive set of 17-inch wheels. They're wrapped in 205/55 tires, all seasons, of course. This is very similar to what you're going to find on a lot of compact cars. Now, regarding the platform from the Kicks, this rides on the Nissan Versa platform. It's Nissan's V platform, and it's a lot bigger than the Juke that it kind of replaces. Its wheelbase is 103 inches long. It's about 169 inches long overall, which makes it about 7 inches longer than the Juke and about 3 inches shorter than Nissan's own Rogue Sport. In terms of size, this is a little bit bigger than a Soul, a little bit smaller than a Subaru Crosstrek. Now you can see here the overall proportions. I love the white roof that my tester gives you. It comes standard with these roof rails on the top, so you guys can mount a roof rack and then put like a surfboard or whatever else you want to put on the actual roof bound. Now, if you want to follow me over to the rear of the vehicle, the styling is again pretty unique. You have the company's signature kind of floating roof that they first introduced on the Murano a few years ago. And then the taillights, they're not anything too special. These are all incandescent. There's no LED accents or whatnot. The overall design is very interesting. I don't know if I like the black plastic that's down over here. It looks a little bit cheap, although this is going to make it very durable when you guys are loading stuff. There's no visible exhaust tips. And then going to the cargo area, Nissan is very proud of the fact that the cargo space is much larger than the competition. I think only the HR-V and Crosstrek beats this out, but you're looking at around 25 cubic feet of space. Now compare that to the paltry 11 cubic feet that the Juke offered with all the seats up, and you can see Nissan really expanded this out. Underneath here, you have nice little storage options underneath here with a temporary spare tire, so you don't have to deal with a fix-a-flat kit. So my tester, being the top-of-the-line SR, does come standard with the company's smart key access system with push-button start. You can see Nissan has not changed the key still, although the key still feels nice. It's a good size. One thing I really like is Nissan did include remote start. Just push the lock button here and then push and hold this button until the engine starts right up for you. And then if you want to shut the engine off, just push the button again here, and then it shuts off the car. Now, the SV trims will come standard with the intelligent access function, so it works like every other Nissan. There's a button on the door handle. Just touch that, it locks the door. To unlock it, there's no sensor on the handle. You have to touch the button again, and that unlocks the door for you. Now, the interior of the Kicks definitely looks nice at a glance. I really like the leatherette seating that you get on this particular one because it has the premium package with the contrast orange stitching. You can see the premium package also rolls in the 8-speaker Bose personal sound system with the embedded speakers in the headrest. Only on the driver's headrest, as you can see. It's not included on the passenger headrest. The seats themselves, they're pretty basic. You have a manual adjustment. You have a height adjustment here. Recline, it's a manual forward and back. No lumbar adjustment, and I found the seats to be a little annoying for me in terms of the lumbar support. But getting in here, you can see because the Kicks does sit up higher, it has about 7 inches of ground clearance. It has that SUV step-in height, which is definitely nice. When you shut the door, It sounds a little tinny if I'm being honest, but again, this is based on the Versa platform. Now, because this is push button start, just put your foot on the brake like everything else, push this button here by the shifter to fire up the engine. Now you can see here the gauge display on this car is a LCD on the left side, and that's included on the SV trims and up. I think it's a really nice addition. You can customize this, you know, to show whatever you'd like. You can show your audio information, your fuel economy information, actual trip information, and then change the settings and whatnot. I like the TAC option. It actually looks like just a traditional analog, which is nice. It's a pretty, you know, premium looking detail. Now the rest of this interior you can see also makes a pretty good first impression. The 7-inch infotainment system here is standard across the board on all the Kicks models. Android Auto and CarPlay you can see is included, but only on SV trims and up. And then you can see here in terms of the materials, you have a hard touch material on this upper portion of the dash, and then this SR trim gives you this leatherette with the stitching on this actual portion, so that's pretty nice. The lower trims will kind of have a hard plastic textured piece. Everything else about this interior is kind of hard touch plastic. Now looking at the door panels, unfortunately this is where you're going to see some of the cost cutting. This is an inexpensive car. It's all hard touch plastic here, and you can even see some of the flash molding that's kind of exposed, which doesn't make a great first impression. Thankfully it's nice and padded down here where your elbows are going to rest. The windows are one touch automatic for the front windows, one touch up and down, which is nice. I wasn't expecting that. You can see there's a small little area here where you could put your phone, although my phone doesn't fit very well in there. There's some good deep storage down here, which is nice. There's a little bit more storage right there. You have your stability control off button there. The steering wheel is leather wrapped only on this particular trim, which with that flat bottom shape, it's the same steering wheel that we've seen on the Nissan Rogue. You can see here this car is not available with adaptive cruise control. This is where the button would be, and then the vehicle doesn't offer that adaptive cruise function. It's just not available on the Kicks at this particular price point. Now the head unit here, let's talk about a little bit about this, because this is the latest Nissan head unit with the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You can see here going to the Nissan display here, all your radio sources are right there. You push this button here, it'll bring up the 360 camera, which is included on this trim, which is definitely nice. It also has moving object detection, which is basically rear cross traffic alert, which is great. The camera quality isn't really anything special, but this is a pretty rare feature in this segment, so I like the fact that Nissan is offered that. You can see you can even show like a side view there, where if you're trying to parallel park this vehicle onto an actual curb. Going to the menu display here will show a couple of different options for you. Your wallpaper, your clock, you can customize the home setting. It's pretty basic. Factory embedded navigation is not available on this car. Instead, if you want navigation, you have to go to the CarPlay function, then pull up the actual map display here. This will show you, if you want to use navigation in this car, which is, nice that Nissan included the CarPlay on the lower trims. Now, down here you can see single zone automatic climate control. This is optional. Again, you have 2-level heated seats that you get only on the premium package, so you have to get the fully loaded model to get that. Down here you can see there's a little button all the way buried down here, which allows you to change the interior color on the footwell and then turn it on and off. That's a really interesting place to put it. The button itself also feels a little cheap, but there's good storage right here for your phone, a USB port there. This controls the CVT transmission. It's just Nissan's Xtronic CVT. No manual mode, no sport mode, no paddles on the wheel. It's pretty basic. You have a traditional handbrake here that you can pull. There's some cup holders over here along with a little bit more storage. The 2 USB ports there for rear seat passengers. And then I don't really like the fact that Nissan only gives you this driver armrest that goes up and down. The passenger is kind of shafted. I really would just have preferred for them to put an actual center console here, but again, in this segment, this is kind of a little bit common. Above you, no sunroof. Nissan doesn't offer a sunroof on this car, which is a little annoying because they offer a big pano sunroof on the Rogue, but again, everything is at a price point. The seats, the leatherette feels really nice. It's supportive. These are the zero gravity memory foam seats, which I found them to be good. I just wish that they offered adjustable lumbar on the driver's side, but I mean, overall, it feels roomy. You can see out of this car very well. And I think a lot of people are going to get in this car and, find a lot of things that are favorable with this car, especially when you look at something like a Nissan Sentra or a Nissan Versa. So typically in this segment, the back seat is a rather useless area because these are such small vehicles. Now, thankfully, because this car is based on the Versa platform, the back seat is surprisingly usable. Now, I will comment that the fact that the rear seat room is not as plentiful as what you get in the Versa sedan or the Versa Note hatchback, which surprises me a little, but you do have a nice high seating position, just like the front seats, and there's a pretty good amount of usable space. The floor here is nearly flat. You have pretty good foot space. This is where I would have the actual front seat to drive. So, I mean, I'm 5'7". I'm relatively comfortable. There's very good headroom in here. The materials, they're all hard touch plastic, as I expected for a vehicle in this price point. Now, in terms of the features, the back seat is pretty Spartan. The seats do fold down 60/40, but there's no armrest here. You get 1 cup holder and then 2 USB ports, but there's no rear seat vents. And then Nissan gives you 2 map pockets here for storage. So under the hood of the teeny tiny little Kicks, you're gonna find a teeny tiny little motor. Now, if you guys remember the Juke, it was one of the more powerful offerings in the segment. Unfortunately, Nissan decided to go more of the fuel economy route with the Kicks. They are giving us a 1.6 liter 4-cylinder double overhead cam engine, no direct injection, and they also took away the turbo that was strapped onto the motor in the Juke. So we're dealing with a powertrain that only makes 125 horsepower and 115 pound-feet of torque. I know those numbers sound awful, but keep in mind, a lot of vehicles in this segment don't really have much power. In fact, the Kia Soul's base engine makes 130 horsepower. Now, what makes the Kicks so interesting is the fact that this vehicle is super lightweight. It only weighs 2,600 pounds because it's only front-wheel drive. You cannot get all-wheel drive in this vehicle. And because it's so lightweight, it also gets very good fuel economy. Nissan rates it at 31 in the city and 36 on the highway, 33 combined. That's literally like 5 to 6 or 7 miles per gallon better than most of its competition. You only have one transmission choice, a continuously variable transmission. Nissan says it's their latest version, but let's get it out on the road and see how it all performs, shall we? So anything with 125 horsepower definitely doesn't get me excited, but I will keep an open mind for the test drive. So let's go out and see how this Nissan Kicks performs, shall we? Okay, so Nissan's been doing a CVT for a while now, and they've tuned the CVT to be pretty responsive. I mean, when I put my foot down, it's very quick to drop down a ratio and kind of give me a little bit more acceleration. Unfortunately, the engine is typically what I expected for this type of vehicle. It's a 1.6 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. It is sluggish. There's not really much test data for this car, but it feels like it gets to 60 in like 10 seconds or more. Now, because the Kicks is based on the Versa platform, it has a semi-independent twist beam rear suspension, and it also has rear drum brakes. This car's ride quality is definitely not as smooth as I'd like it to be. Now, keep in mind, everything in the segment, most of them have a semi-independent twist beam rear suspension. So this car definitely feels bumpy. Now, in terms of the steering response, it's also electric power steering. It is one of the slower ratios that I'm feeling. It's just, when I turn the wheel, it doesn't really do much, which surprised me because this car is so light. It's 2,700 pounds. That's basically what a Honda Fit weighs. So I was expecting this thing to be a little bit, sportier feeling. And, you do feel that lightweight of this car, but I mean, everything else about it, the engine is buzzy, it doesn't have much power. Thankfully, if you're not going to be driving it like Mario and Jenny, like I usually drive, it is relatively easy to drive. The visibility in here is very good. You can see very well out of the front. The side mirrors are pretty big. You can see out of the back. And in terms of a driver assistance, Nissan made their automatic emergency braking as standard equipment on every trim, even the base model, which makes this car one of the least expensive cars, like for under 18 grand, that actually has automatic emergency braking. But again, the value quotient is strong here, but I don't like it when cars feel cheap. And when you start driving the Kicks, it doesn't feel too cheap, really, until you start pushing it, where you hear that buzzy engine. It's just really unpleasant. And then the suspension also is a little bit rough riding, which is surprising because this car is a car that's designed to be, primarily city driving, I guess. And then the ride quality is just a little bit too firm for me. The steering is too slow, but it's just painful. You have to be really patient to get up to speed with this car. But again, I drove things like the HR-V, the CHR. Those are also really slow. The Renegade is also pretty slow because of that, 2.4 liter with the 9-speed auto, which is just awful. But if you're just going to drive this thing, as a commuter car around the city, you don't really plan to take it out on the highway, this is where the Kicks is really going to shine. Now, in terms of the road noise, I had it up on the highway, and it's not bad. The engine just kind of gets a little buzzy, which is what I expected, but the road noise was pretty subdued, and it doesn't have any power, so you have to be very patient. I feel like this car definitely takes at least 10 seconds, between 10 to 11 seconds to get to 60, which is pretty norm. But it makes me sad because the Juke was one of the quickest vehicles in the segment. You could get one that would get to 60 in under 7 seconds. So I'm really annoyed that Nissan didn't offer the Juke's 1.6 liter turbo. I have no idea if they're going to offer that eventually. They wouldn't comment, of course, on future product. They said they can't comment if they're going to offer all-wheel drive, although this car has very little power. You don't need all-wheel drive. Which is why, again, Nissan decided to just make it lighter, less expensive, just make it front-wheel drive. Because, it's just gonna be great for this kind of environment. But again, if you guys plan to do a lot of highway driving, I'd probably recommend at least looking at the Rogue or the Rogue Sport, because that's gonna give you a little bit more power than this. It's just gonna feel a little bit more comfortable. But thankfully, even though this car is small, which it does feel small when you're driving, it doesn't feel small from, you know, behind the wheel here. It has pretty good amounts of interior space, which is great. You know, Nissan's typically very strong in that category. And I think most people are gonna get in this, especially if you're trading in something like a Honda Civic that's 10 years old or a Toyota Corolla that's 10 years old. This is gonna be a really nice car. I do wish that it offered features like embedded nav, you know, big sunroof, stuff like that. But again, at this price point, you kind of have to make a compromise there. And I think Nissan did a pretty decent job with picking and choosing the features. So in the last couple of years, we've really seen this segment of small SUVs explode. It's practically doubled in volume, so it doesn't surprise me that Nissan would introduce an all-new SUV to replace the Juke, which was kind of a slow seller for them. So where does that leave the Kicks in the lineup? Well, as you guys saw from the video, it's a very uniquely styled car. I really like the way it looks on the outside, especially with this color combination. The interior is very usable, it's very roomy, it's very comfortable, and it has more space than a lot of its competitors. The technology that it gives you on this top-of-the-line trim is also pretty decent given the price point. And really my only negatives have to do with the driving dynamics. Like everything else in this segment, it's damn slow, which is kind of annoying. In terms of its handling, it's fine. It's not the sportiest, but it's also, you know, not the most uncomfortable driving of the vehicles in this segment. So let's bring it to the best aspect of this car, and that's really the price. Nissan has priced this thing very attractively. It starts at just under $18,000, $17,995 plus a $975 destination. And that honestly gives you a car that's pretty well equipped, and I would probably recommend going to the SV trim. That'll give you the intelligent access key with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and then the blind spot monitoring with your cross traffic alert. That's only $2,000 more, $19,900. Fully loaded, this one starts at $20,290. Add $1,000 for that premium package that gives you the Bose audio system, the leatherette seats, and the heated seats. And you're looking at basically $21,290, $22,000 with the destination charge. That makes the Kicks about $5,000 cheaper than a lot of its competitors. It starts like $2,000 cheaper than everything else for the most part. And really the only thing that's cheaper than this car is the Kia Soul, the base model with a 6-speed manual, but then when you add the automatic, it makes it more expensive than the Kick. So Nissan has seriously priced this thing very competitively. If you guys are looking for your first car, or you're just looking for a crossover SUV that's very different than the Honda Civic you used to drive back in high school, this one definitely deserves to be at the top of your list. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2018 Nissan Kicks. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.